I know we didn't see a lot of Hines Allen, but I really think her passing ability is going to help the Fever as well.
And that one gets to rattle in from Passat.
Every single general manager in the WNBA just obsessively watched the Indiana Fever's opening preseason game tape, and every single one of them aggressively, maliciously circled the exact same name on their highly classified scouting notepads. We are staring directly down the barrel of the absolute most catastrophic fireable roster decision in the entire history of the Indiana Fever franchise. While the mainstream sports media is entirely distracted by Caitlin Clark's shooting numbers and the final 109-91 blowout score against the New York Liberty, the rest of the league is actively, ruthlessly waiting in the shadows to execute the ultimate heist. The Indiana Fever front office is currently on the absolute brink of letting a generational 6'4" elite sharpshooter walk out of their practice facility for absolutely nothing. Her name is Justine Pissot. She shot a staggering 42% from the three-point line in college. She just made her professional debut against a championship-caliber defense, and she completely undeniably proved that she belongs in this rotation. And every single rival front office, from the Las Vegas Aces to the New York Liberty, from the Dallas Wings to the Los Angeles Sparks, is picking up the phone right now, desperately praying that General Manager Lynn Dunn and President Kelly Kroskoff are actually arrogant enough to let her hit the waiver wire. Welcome back to WNBA Pro, the entirely unfiltered, unapologetic, and fiercely analytical home for the absolute smartest basketball conversations on the entire internet. If you are looking for lazy box score reading, uneducated casual takes, and corporate PR fluff designed to protect fragile executive egos, you absolutely need to turn this video off right now. Today, we are aggressively breaking down the highly classified, terrifying reality of the WNBA developmental contract loophole, the absolute tactical brilliance of Justine Pat's preseason debut, the malicious vulture strategy currently being deployed by rival super teams, and why the Indiana Fever are about to commit the ultimate unforgivable sin of organizational asset management, BAST. Let us start by aggressively establishing the absolute, mathematically undeniable truth of modern professional basketball. When you scour the entire landscape of the WNBA, the absolute most highly coveted, brutally expensive, and virtually impossible to find archetype in the sport is the towering elite perimeter spacer. Franchises spend years actively tanking and millions of dollars desperately searching for 6'4" players who possess a lightning-quick trigger and a fundamentally flawless three-point stroke. And yet, by some absolute miracle of draft night sliding, the Indiana Fever secured exactly that unicorn with a second-round draft pick. And yesterday, during her highly restricted preseason debut against the New York Liberty, Pissot stepped onto the Barclays Center hardwood and did not just play well, she completely, undeniably validated every single line of our elite scouting report.
Problem is, again, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough, KK Timpson, and Justine Pissot have one spot on the team for them. And the Fever have made it basically... We heard from Chloe Peterson, they picked their 12 already. And all it means is that a Portland Fire, a Washington Mystics,
Look incredibly closely at the raw, unedited game tape. In just over 10 restricted minutes of playing time, she went 2 for 4 from the field, including splashing a massive three-pointer and finishing with a perfect 2 for 2 from the free throw line. She finished with 6 points and an absolutely staggering +6 ± rating in her limited action. But it is not just the raw numbers, it is exactly how she achieved them. This is not a hesitant rookie terrified of the WNBA spotlight. When Pat catches the basketball on the perimeter, the opposing defense desperately scrambles to close out. But the terrifying reality for the defense is that Pat literally does not even see the contest. Her release point is so incredibly high, and her mechanics are so lightning fast that a standard guard closing out is geometrically irrelevant. She catches the ball on the wing and immediately, ruthlessly launches the deep three without a single ounce of human conscience. She looked incredibly comfortable. She looked violently confident. But this brings us to the absolute unmitigated nightmare currently unfolding in the Indiana Fever front office. Because of this undeniable jaw-dropping performance, the secret is officially out. The rest of the WNBA now mathematically knows that Justine Pat is a legitimate high-level professional rotation player. But the incredibly arrogant Indiana Fever executives are currently trapped in a terrifying salary cap logjam of their own creation. The Fever currently have 16 highly talented players sitting in training camp. By the strict rules of the collective bargaining agreement, they are legally forced to cut that massive number down to a maximum of 12 active roster spots, plus potentially 2 highly unprotected developmental spots before the regular season officially tips off on May 9th. That means at least 4 professional basketball players have to be completely cut from the organization. And nobody in the mainstream media is accurately talking about how this directly connects to the massive salary cap problem the Fever arrogantly created for themselves during free agency.
The ball gets inbound to Kiana Traylor. They run a soft trap on Kiana Traylor on the inbound. The ball gets thrown back to her to take the ball up. She dribbles the ball up, sees Hanju guarding her, goes into out dribble, gets a step on her going left.
Let me completely break down the exact financial mismanagement. The Indiana Fever committed massive franchise-altering money to their veteran core. Kelsey Mitchell is currently operating on a massive $1.4 million Supermax contract. Aaliyah Boston just officially signed a massive, fully guaranteed, 4-year, $6.3 million contract extension. They brought back Sophie Cunningham on a heavy $665,000 deal. Lexi Hall was secured on a multi-year extension. They locked up Monique Billings on a guaranteed 2-year deal. They signed Maisha Hines-Allen to a heavily guaranteed veteran contract. They brought in Tyasha Harris. Every single one of those contracts was technically defensible individually, but collectively they have left the Indiana Fever with absolutely zero room to maneuver. The casual fans constantly scream that the Fever can just cut a veteran like Maisha Hines-Allen to make room for Pat. Let me completely brutally destroy that uneducated fantasy right now. Miss Hines-Allen is on a fully guaranteed contract. If the Indiana Fever cut her, they are still legally required to pay her entire salary, which completely counts against their incredibly tight salary cap. If they cut her, they are mathematically forced to carry an 11-player roster, because they physically cannot afford to sign a replacement. They are financially handcuffed. This means the final roster spot is boiling down to an absolute blood-soaked training camp battle between Justine Pat and their highly drafted forward KK Timpson. And this is exactly where the front office ego threatens to destroy the franchise's future. Yes, KK Timpson is physically stronger and a highly aggressive rebounder, but she is incredibly raw. She lacks elite spatial awareness, and she provides absolutely zero perimeter spacing. Pat is a full year and a half younger, significantly longer, a vastly superior ball handler in the half-court, and most importantly, a generational perimeter shooter. So, the highly probable, terrifying reality is that the Indiana Fever are going to stubbornly attempt to stash Justine Pat on a highly unprotected developmental contract. And this is exactly where every rival team in the WNBA is going to commit the ultimate heist.
So you look at the Mercury team. Who's going to make the Mercury squad? Copper, 1. Mac, 2. Cole McCanny, 3. Kat Westbeld, 4. Ayayi, 5. Bonner, 6. AT, 7. Whitcomb, 8. They have 4 spots to go for, and all of these are undrafted rookies.
You need to deeply, fundamentally understand how the WNBA developmental contract loophole actually works. A developmental slot is completely unprotected. If the Indiana Fever plays Pizzette on a developmental deal, she gets paid a microscopic stipend of $750 a week. But here is the massive franchise-destroying catch. Any other team in the WNBA can legally steal her at any exact moment. All a rival team has to do is offer Pizzette a standard full-time WNBA contract, and she instantly packs her bags, leaves Indianapolis, and joins the rival franchise. The Fever have absolutely zero right of refusal. Let me tell you exactly which massive, highly intelligent WNBA franchises are actively, maliciously waiting in the shadows to execute this exact vulture strategy. Look at the Dallas Wings. The Dallas Wings desperately need elite perimeter shooting. They just added generational playmakers in Paige Bueckers and AZ Fudd through the draft, but their roster is still terrifyingly thin on the wing. Justin Pett, standing at 6'4" and shooting 42% from three, would immediately become one of the absolute best floor spacers in their entire system. Imagine the unguardable geometry of Picett standing on the weak side wing while Paige Bueckers violently drives the lane. That is the exact same dynamic she would have with Caitlin Clark in Indiana, except now she is wearing a Dallas jersey and actively helping a rival contend for a championship. Look at the Los Angeles Sparks. The Sparks are in full unmitigated rebuild mode. They desperately need young elite shooters. They need massive size. They need high upside players who can aggressively develop into starters over the next 2 to 3 years. Pitt completely checks every single one of those boxes. She would instantly get starter minutes in Los Angeles. She would get the massive developmental runway she needs to reach her ceiling. And she would do it in a massive media market where the Sparks are absolutely desperate for any competitive advantage they can legally find. Look at the New York Liberty. The Liberty just watched Picett step onto their home floor yesterday and completely splash threes in their face. They saw firsthand exactly what her mechanics look like against their elite defense. And they possess the absolute best organizational infrastructure to develop young talent in the league. If Pitt ends up in New York getting stashed on the bench next to Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu, the Fever will have actively gifted a lethal weapon to a super team they will have to face multiple times this season, and potentially in the playoffs.
They have size, they have their point guards. And like Miniatore might not make the team. The Sun could take her. The tempo very well could say to Chloe Bibby, you know what? We've got a younger version of you who is much longer. We'll let Chloe Bibby go. Justine Passat will take you in. We're trying to lose.
Look incredibly closely at the Phoenix Mercury. While the Indiana Fever completely filled their training camp with guaranteed contracts, the Mercury purposefully entered training camp with only 8 guaranteed players on their roster. They intentionally left massive roster spots completely open. They are actively sitting back like vultures, waiting to see exactly which elite players fall victim to the roster crunches of poorly managed teams. The exact second Lynn Dunn attempts to sneak Justine Pat onto a developmental deal, the Phoenix Mercury are going to instantly smash the steel button. See, and look at the Washington Mystics and the Toronto Tempo. The Mystics are actively stripping their roster down to the absolute studs, tanking for generational talents like Guju Watkins or Sarah Strong. A 6'4" elite sharpshooter is the exact perfect developmental asset for a tanking team. And the newly expanded Toronto Tempo would happily take a 6'4" rookie with massive upside over an older, physically maxed out veteran, Rishuashin Woffing. This is why Justine Passat is the absolute perfect geometric fit for Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is undeniably the greatest, most creative passer in WNBA history. Her assist numbers are not just impressive, they are completely historic. She averaged an absolutely staggering 8.8 assists per game last season. She creates wide-open looks for every single player on the floor. Her gravity from 30 feet completely warps opposing defenses and mathematically opens up the perimeter for shooters. But that high-speed transition system only functions at its absolute peak when the shooters around Clark can actually convert the shot. Lexi Hull currently shoots an elite 47% from three when placed next to Clark. That is the absolute gold standard of floor spacing. But Lexi Hull is exactly 6 feet tall. She physically cannot shoot over massive defensive switches. She cannot post up smaller guards when the shot clock is winding down. She cannot effortlessly get her shot off against elite 6'4" length. Justine Piso absolutely can.
Both of them have similar weaknesses in terms of, I think KK is stronger. I think KK is a much better rebounder. I think KK is more athletic. Passat is much longer. Passat is a better ball handler. She's a much better passer, and she shoots the ball better. And is a year and a half younger. I think in general, I'm looking at it and
at
I'm
6'4" with a flawlessly clean, incredibly high release point, Pat can effortlessly get her shot off against absolutely any elite defender in this league. When Caitlin Clark violently drives the lane and kicks the ball out to Pat on the wing, the defensive closeout has to be absolutely mathematically perfect, or the basketball is going straight through the bottom of the net. And when opposing defenses desperately try to switch a smaller 5'10" guard onto Pat, she literally shoots right over the top of their head as if they do not exist. That specific combination of towering size and elite perimeter shooting is exactly what Caitlin Clark desperately needs surrounding her. It is completely irreplaceable, and the Indiana Fever drafted it with a second-round pick, and they might actually be arrogant enough to just give it away. Here is exactly what makes this situation incredibly urgent. The very next massive preseason game is April 30th against the Dallas Wings. Paige Buchers and AZ Fudd are coming directly to Indianapolis. Justine Pat is going to get another massive, highly televised audition. If she steps onto that floor, shoots the lights out again, shows she can aggressively defend, and continues to look completely comfortable at the professional level, the Indiana Fever front office is going to have a terrifying decision on their hands. Do they foolishly save a few hundred, 0 inches short-term cap space and let her walk out the door? Or do they admit their roster-building mistakes, find a creative way to keep the unicorn, and figure out the financial accounting later? Every single great dynasty-building franchise in sports history has faced this exact pivotal decision at some point. Do you let the young elite talent go because the corporate math is temporarily tight right now? Or do you get highly creative and find a way to keep the exact player who might turn into a generational championship winning asset? The Golden State Warriors completely revolutionized basketball because they kept Draymond Green when he was just a second-round pick who was not even guaranteed a roster spot. The Boston Celtics aggressively kept Marcus Smart when they already had a highly crowded backcourt. The truly great organizations find a way. They make the difficult financial decisions. They absolutely do not let massive, undeniable potential walk out the front door simply because of short-term accounting errors. The Indiana Fever front office has a massive, undeniable chance to prove they are a great organization right now. Justine Pat is the ultimate organizational test. If they keep her, they mathematically prove they understand long-term championship-level roster building. If they cut her, every single rival superteam in the WNBA will violently thank them for the absolute greatest gift of the off-season. WNBA Pro has been aggressively screaming this exact reality since draft night, and we are going to keep screaming it until the front office wakes up. You absolutely do not let a 6'4" sniper leave the building. A massive, deeply appreciative shout-out to our highly loyal channel members like Sarah, Mark, and David for always keeping the vision, financially supporting the channel, and actively demanding elite, uncompromising tactical analysis. We are aggressively building the absolute smartest, most fearless basketball community on the entire internet, and your incredible loyalty makes this massive deep dive documentary content possible. Violently smash that subscribe button right now if you want the absolute deepest, most analytical, uncompromising roster breakdown on the internet that the lazy mainstream media is completely terrified to report. Drop your completely unfiltered raw prediction in the comments section below on whether the front office ego is going to ruin Caitlin Clark's offensive spacing by letting Pat walk. Hit the notification bell immediately because the Dallas Wings preseason game is in exactly 4 days. The highly classified final roster decisions are coming fast, and the Vultures are officially circling the Indiana practice facility.